This is an act of economic self-harm by
Mr. Albanese.
It will increase the costs for consumers.
Because, are you listening? Orange man bad. So, as we know, the word tariff is really tax, a little bit like levy. And if you put a charge on top of everything that crosses your borders, apparently the rest of the world does not like it.
Everyone hates me.
This is an old school way of playing trade in a global economy where slave labour makes things in one part of Southeast Asia and then the Western world, of course, demands it must be used by, among other things, government when it comes to, say, energy.
Well, what we know is that renewables are the cheapest form of new energy. And we did modelling on our policy that showed that to be
Bullshit!
But of course, when it comes to this specific situation, when it comes to tariffs and Trump and Orange Man bad, is that essentially putting a tax on something is unfair because it means that the idea of international and free trade is fundamentally at risk.
of economic self-harm.
And we know that there are many people in Australia who hate any idea of a tariff because, are you listening? Orange man bad.
It's
also
almost
the same colour.
thing. Look at that.
Oh, where is he? I'd like to look at him.
He scares out of me.
The application of these new tariffs is certainly not the act of a friend.
I've done that.
So, if you clip the ticket, bad. If you add a tax on top of a good simply because it comes from somewhere else, bad. Orange man bad. Can I say that as many times as possible? Has that sunk in? Orange man bad. Terrible policy. Tariffs, awful, evil.
Something straight out of a horror movie.
Look at his face. His expression never changes. It's like he's...
An act of economic self-harm.
Unless, of course, you want to do it in the name of the environment.
How dare you?
And the government who is considering doing this, our government. Now remember, Orange man bad for increasing tariffs on steel from Australia going into the United States. Well, amazingly today, Chris Bowen is
A traitor.
openly talking about the idea of introducing tariffs if the things that come into this country from the rest of the world are carbon intensive, i.e. if they pollute when they are being made, then a tax will be paid before it comes into the country. Now remember, everything that is true about tariffs when it comes to Donald Trump is exactly the same here, right?
No, what we know, the numbers are the energy bills will be cheaper if you have more renewables.
Bullshit!
Tariffs are bad because it makes everything more expensive. This makes everything more expensive. And if you think it's just some crazy right-wing talking point, here is the man on taxpayer TV talking about the very issue today.
I know you've been looking at the option of Australia imposing a carbon tariff or a carbon border adjustment mechanism, as the Europeans are looking at. What's your thinking on that at the moment?
It's not okay to question.
Any idea of a tariff because, are you listening? Orange man bad.
We want to ensure Australian industry is best placed to compete in a decarbonising world. As you know, I commissioned...
Bullshit!
And obviously that's something I'll continue to progress this term.
Move this man!
Now, they say it's noble because to put a 5, 10, 20% tax on everything that's imported into the country, if it has some connection to an increase in emissions around the world, well, that would, of course, increase the price here in Australia in exactly the same way that the Orange Man bad tariffs increase the price of things like Australian steel being bought in the United States. Now, this is really fascinating because, as we know, the Orange Man bad narrative, that tariffs equal tax, tariffs equal increase in prices and end up being paid by the, in this case, American consumer at a period of time where the inflation worries of the past couple of years have started to cool down, that essentially a 10% increase in something like steel would eventually feed back into an increase in inflation.
Our priority will be to provide cost of living relief whilst taking pressure off inflation.
Now, it wouldn't surprise me if the people who in 2022 promised a better cost of living, but actually it got worse for 3 years, who then got re-elected in 2025, saying again that they're doing something about cost of living, but then are equally at the same time talking about a policy of increasing the cost of things being imported into the country because of how they are made, what they are made from, and what the effect is on the planet. That will mean prices will rise. Now, some people say that we are past the point of no return where people are willing to pay anything to save the planet. But proportionality and reality does actually have to stick here. And I don't care what the political consequences are. The reality is that Australia is 1% of the global problem.